And all our emerging artist information at coasttocoastam.com. Just go and look at their works and support what they do, because this is a great opportunity for them to let the world hear what they do. In a moment, John Hogue joins us, expert on prophecy. We'll get his thoughts for 2017 as well. But first, of course, as I mentioned, this is our 14th year anniversary. And there are so many people who have been instrumental in the success of this program, including, of course, you and our guests. And one of them is a fellow who's going to be my guest tomorrow night on Coast to Coast, Bill Forstchen, who has been warning everybody about the potential of the power grid going down, either with an EMP attack from some nation or a solar flare from the sun. And Bill, thanks for spending so many years with us, giving us some vital information.
Well, George, I'm calling in to say happy anniversary. It's been 14 great years of listening to you.
Well, thank you, my friend. And you've made it fun doing the show. As scary as what you talk about, it's great information for everybody.
Well, there's times you've scared me, and when you were here in Asheville, North Carolina, back in September, that was a heck of a couple of days together. I really appreciated it.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow night on the show.
Congratulations and God bless, George. 14 more good years for you.
You got it. Bill Forstchen, looking forward to talking to him tomorrow. And, of course, Chase Klotsky is another one. She's a ufologist. We just had her on last week as we debuted her podcast. Chase, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, George, and happy 14th anniversary.
Oh, my gosh. I can't believe how fast it has just flown by, Chase.
I know, it does go by fast, especially the older we get. But you've brought millions of people content that's captured their attention and informed them beyond measure. It's just amazing that Coast and you, George, specifically, really are the benchmark of broadcasting excellence.
Well, thank you, Chase.
Hope that you continue with this amazing success.
We're going to continue climbing the mountain, and we've got a great team here, by the way, that has kept this program clicking along. From people behind the scenes to people who are on the air. It's just a dedicated group of people who want to give you the information. One of them, of course, John Hogue, and we'll be back with John in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you. John Hogue, of course, writes on the subjects of the occult, parapsychology, mysticism, and prophecy. He is, without a doubt, a world authority on Nostradamus and a best-selling author as well. And here he is back on Coast to Coast. If I had a drum, John, I'd be beating it right now to get you on. How are you?
Hi, George. Happy New Year.
Thank you, John.
Overwhelmed with work, as you could imagine.
Oh, my gosh. Absolutely. So I got an email from someone who chastised me for saying that you have been accurate now in all these elections with the pick. And he said, come on, you're really pushing the envelope on this one. And I emailed him back and I said, hey, look, with all respect, I got to tell you, John Hogue picked Hillary Clinton, and she won by 2 million votes in the popular vote. And I'm going to stick by what I said. You know, until he loses outright, I'm going to just keep saying that he's calling it right. And so that's what I did, John. I wanted you to know.
Well, thanks, George. I mean, you remember just maybe 20 minutes after Trump declared the winner, I came on your show around 1 a.m. Pacific, and I must say, for all those people who wish I was 12-1, I also wish I was 12-1, because actually I was quite happy that
you thought you were 12-1 that night.
Yeah, but you were the one that reminded me, and I think rightfully reminds everybody that because Trump was winning the popular vote at that time, but you were right to caution that I shouldn't call it because a lot of the popular vote was still coming in.
That's
and
right.
Folks, that's how I've been making these predictions. I base it on the popular vote. You know, with prophecy, there's limits to what your oracle talents see. And what I've come to understand since doing this since 1968 election is that I tune into people, and I don't tune into dead laws. I tune into what the will of the majority of the people want.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that what they want is right. I actually am relieved personally that Hillary Clinton is not going to be the president because of some of the potential futures that she was going to unleash on the world. So it's not a question of me having sour grapes. I would have really loved to have seen Trump got a couple million votes in the popular vote and say, hey, I'm 12-1, so ends the streak. But the reality is that the American people did not pick, as a majority, him as president. But he is the president, and I have to remind everybody that a year before the election, actually 13 months before the election, I wrote prophecies that talked about how he would win an upset victory if Hillary Clinton once again sabotaged her destiny.
And that happened.
Yes.
Horrible run campaign. Horrible run. Anyways, let's have you take a look back at 16, and then we'll take a look at 17. Many things that we talked about over the appearances that you had with me in 2016. And what do you think? How would you grade yourself?
Well, I predicted Brexit. For one thing, I predicted Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote and how she would sabotage that by a surprise victory by Trump at a time when, except for the creator of Dilbert, very few of us out there were seeing him as anything more than some kind of sideshow.
Mm-hmm.
And I early on said he was a serious contender, the only Republican that could beat Clinton. The issue of 400 parts per million happening in this year, that happened. Many other things. You can actually, I'm going to produce soon an article that will look at some of those best picks of accurate predictions from 2016.
Okay. What did you think of the collapse of Jeb Bush?
Well, I saw it coming. Of course, at the same time, years anticipating up to this, I also said on your show many times that the corporate forces that were, ever since 2010, have really pretty much taken over the republic, in my view, by making money in corporations human beings, which they're not. As bodies, as corporate bodies, as business. But what basically happened is capitalization of the people's democracy took place, and they were going to pick Hillary Clinton as their primary and Jeb Bush as their secondary poster boy and girl for puppets for whatever they wanted to manipulate. Bush went down really fast because, this was a year, I predicted, where you have to support, if you're going to be establishment, you're going to have a real uphill battle to win, because this was the year 2016 where outsiders had a chance to upend things. They did it with Brexit. They did it with Trump and Sanders. The Democratic Party machine managed to suppress Bernie Sanders with no help from Russian hacks, just from their own hacking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the other last outsider standing, who basically is really a catalyst of change, chaos, that in a way is not, those words, when I say chaos, is usually a word that invokes a negative reaction. But in this new book I'm putting together, which should be out in the end of January, called President Trump Predictions.
Oh, that's cool.
Try to look at how we can celebrate chaos and use it as a catalyst to wake up, get engaged, discourse with each other, stop holding on to our polarities in this country, and start reaching out to each other. Because he's going to shake it all up. Barack Obama talked change for 8 years and made some changes.
Some change, minimal change, really.
But Donald Trump is change, and now it's a question of what kind of change we want to have from this open medium. He is a natural-born medium, but he's an open medium.
Yeah.
That means that it doesn't surprise me that when he's talking to a crowd of white people in a suppressed, depressed area, that he will channel their xenophobia, the suspicion of people who aren't white, misogyny, and all that. I can also tell you from experiences I know from my contacts who know him personally that when he's in another situation, he channels their love, their creativity. So the people who want to go partisan on Trump, and that's not just the progressives, but it's also the conservatives. See, this is the other thing that's going to happen. The concept of conservatism and progressivism will never be the same. This is one of the things that's going to be completely changed in the coming year. Basically, there's an opportunity for all those people who are freaking out about Trump to kind of look at the hypocrisy that's been hidden behind the mask of, oh, we love everybody, we're tolerant, but not my president, not this person. The same goes for all the Republicans and conservatives who, a few weeks before Trump was elected, pretty much wrote him off and were trying just to salvage their seats in Congress. Now they have this false premise that Trump is now going to do everything that they want. I can tell you this feeling quite categorically clear. Donald Trump is only of one party, the party of his own individual view of things. And even his cabinet, which looks to me more like a setup of a reality show, a celebrity apprentice cabinet, a lot of those people are going to find out that this is a revolving door. If they don't use their talents to support his instinctive way of doing things, it's also going to be, this is the first time we have a president who really is a businessman, not a failed businessman like G.W. Bush, but a real businessman who maybe his father, like George W., also saved him a few times when he was getting larger and larger. Good for him. But for those people who thought that, well, Trump was saved by his father and made his mistakes in his work in New Jersey with the casinos, he did make big mistakes. But when he started rising out of that in the early 90s, that's when my prophetic instincts started to watch Donald Trump as some significant figure in our future, because for him to rise out of that in a depressed market, the most competitive market in the world for real estate, and to actually increase his wealth of his corporation 100-fold, that's when, for me, he awakened in me an interest to watch where he goes, because out of that adversity, he created something really successful. Now he's going to tackle something that's even bigger out of the adversity that we're in right now.
This is a challenge for you.
For him doing the same.
John, so as you look at 17, do you think most of it will revolve around the Trump presidency in terms of things that will affect all of us?
Well, there's a number of things that are big, and I made a list of the things to really look out, and certainly Trump is a part of it because, America has been the leader of the world, and any president that's in office has an impact. This election is a global election. It affects everybody on the planet. And so I want all of your listeners to look at this list of things that I think are going to be some of the main issues that are coming up for all of us in 2017. First off, we're going to see a U.S. economic boom from Trump's infrastructure campaign to rebuild America. In 2017, it's going to be an economic boom. The dollar will get stronger. But the consequence of that is as interest rates rise, and Trump will actually eventually completely change the Federal Reserve and replace it with his own people. But it's going to take 2 years. But in the meantime, interest rates will be hiked by Yellen's and the Fed, and that will create stress in all the other currencies in the world. That by either as soon as the end or in the autumn of 2017 or certainly by 2018, you will have a crisis of inflationary potential depression in 2018. So the other thing that's important to understand is that we have an eclipse that's going to happen on 21st of August, 2017, that's going to pass over the lower 48 states of the United States. And it will, when you look at Donald Trump's astrology compared to that, it will have a significant catalytic transformation for him. And what it may also bring for the country is this moment when a president, through disasters, through upheavals, has this chance to really redefine himself, and may even suffer some personal disaster in the process, which redefines himself as a leader. And it's like a Pearl Harbor moment, but it's not. It does not mean that it's going to be something to do with an attack or a war or something like that. Although, we still have to look at November of 2017 because it's the short countdown. I was early on your show in 2014 spring, warning everybody about this potential of a thermonuclear war that would arise out of nowhere because the short countdown of the two countdowns Nostradamus gave required a new Cold War to start, and that new Cold War started in April of 2014 with the Ukrainian Civil War and the Crimean takeover by the Russians.
And the crazy guy in North Korea.
Well, that's the other thing to look out for early. Very early in Trump's administration, Kim Jong-un, the young'un as I call him, is going to try to do some things. And this may be the first example of a much more robust and decisive response to aggression or threats of aggression that, Trump is not somebody who won't strike militarily. But I'll tell you, the forces that are really freaked out about him, that the news aren't talking about, and it's getting all this attention from progressives that are concerned about him rolling back advances of 30 years and all. I tell you, the greater threat to Trump is from those who have profited immensely from perpetual warfare as a business. The military surveillance industrial complex really doesn't like this guy. He's a renegade one percenter, as I've often warned, and they're going to try to get him to come their way to see things. But I see in the sticks of cabinet members, I see that actually they're not going to succeed. And that brings in the thing I also talked about, that I saw the potential of either candidate in this 2016 race not finishing their first term in office. So if Trump can survive the next 2 years, especially this first year, if Trump does not heed the maladjusted advice of neoconservatives and neoliberals are going to try to convert him like they did Obama.
Will they try to impeach him, John?
Yes, but that is possible. But they might also try to get him into a war with Iran, sorry, by November. And that would then push us through the back door towards this military confrontation with Russia.
That would be a disaster.
And suddenly we have a potential thermonuclear war. But
that,
I have to caution, is a lot less likely with Donald Trump than it was with Hillary Clinton.
I agree. He seems to want to be close to Putin.
I said early on a year ago that his astrology with Putin was really positive, and that he is basically going to end this Cold War, which is going to really anger the military-industrial complex. And a lot of his policies are really opening salvos of the negotiation game. So, of course, he's asking for too much.
All right, hold on, John. We're going to hit the break here. We're going to come back. We'll talk more. We'll open up the phone lines. Questions for John Hogue or your own predictions of which I'll have him react to right here on Coast to Coast AM. John's website, HoagProphecy.com, linked up for you at coasttocoastam.com. We're going to be back in a moment with John Hoag. We're going to take your questions and your comments and your predictions as well about 2017. And as I mentioned, this is our 14th anniversary year. How time flies. And so many people have been instrumental, of course, making this program what it is today. One of those, of course, is our Coast to Coast guest and also co-author with me in Talking to the Dead, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. 14 years, Rosemary. Wow.
Well, I know. Congratulations,
Thank you.
George. It's just been wonderful to be part of the show for all those years.
My gosh, I just don't know where the time flies, Rosemary.
It's over with in a heartbeat. It just goes by so fast. But just look at everything you've done and accomplished.
Well, and we have more mountains to climb, and I want you with us all the way, okay?
I'm on board.
You got it. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and of course, someone who's been very important to this program over the years is none other than Joshua P. Warren. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Happy New Year and happy anniversary, George. 14 years. That's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh, it sure is. And 14 years of talking to you.
Well, you know, I have had the honor over these years to work with you on the radio, on television broadcast, at personal events, and I can tell you that you have this amazing, remarkable ability through all media to open people's minds, to enlighten them, to change them, to make the world a better place. And I honestly predict, George, that 2017 is going to be another groundbreaking year, and I could not be more excited.
And the secret of all of this, Josh, is we find great guests like you who do most of the work.
Hey, you know what? It's a wonderful arrangement, and everybody seems happy.
I love it. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate your comments. We'll be back with John Hoag and your calls in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And John Hoag is with us on our anniversary night. We'll get to your calls, your predictions as well. John, climate change for 2017. What do you see?
Well, I see that we are going to have some significant natural disasters come in the latter half of the year, based on the fact that it's almost like Mother Nature is going to remind us that this is the really big issue in the world. Beyond the threat of thermonuclear war, the planetary crisis that this is going to cause. I've said long ago that I already felt the sense a year ago that Donald Trump, although he says it's a hoax foisted by the Chinese, indicated to me by the sound of his voice that he was beginning to change his view. So I was not at all surprised that he's now freaking out a lot of climate change deniers by actually spending over an hour with Al Gore, who of all the people who can do a sales pitch to convince people that climate change is real, he's certainly one of the best in his documentary, The Inconvenient Truth. So I've often said that people who want to engage Trump, whatever their agenda, need to speak the language that Trump understands, and that is pitch him the idea. Let him then judge it. Speak Trump, which is corporate business. Authentically so, unlike G.W. Bush. So that's out there. I do eventually see the danger of Trump listening to climate change deniers is that in the next 4 to 8 years, if he's a two-term president, and he most likely will be two-term if he survives these first 2 years.
Yeah, if he does a good job for the first 4, he'll get reelected.
Yeah, I mean, he's an echo karmically of Ronald Reagan. So he's the return of lessons that needed to be learned that weren't learned with Ronald Reagan.
If he wants it, John. He may not want it after 4 years.
You know,
you see the way they look when they get elected and then when they come out of office? They've aged like 60 years.
You know, it's funny about that. I mean, I talked a lot about that in my first book, Trump for President, Astrological Predictions. And I often felt that the future First Lady, his wife, Melania, had a prescient moment when Trump was talking to the family as he related that he was going to run for office. And she said, well, if you really want it, Donald, you'll get it. And I started to show my readers in the study of this Gemini sun personality with his Uranus over his sun, which means he can be spontaneous and very unpredictable. That's going to be very consistent throughout his leadership.
Right.
Is that being a Gemini, often Geminis don't really know whether they want something until they're in the midst of it, because they're a mutable sign. And I felt that if he really discovers that he really wants it, he'll win. And so I will go on to say that no matter what's coming up, from what I sense about him, he really wants to be there till he's 78 years old. And
all right.
So he's going to do his best to do that.
All right. Now, your thoughts, of course, on the economy, and then we'll go to calls here, John. Many of our guests over the last several months are predicting another housing bust and a stock market bust. What does John Hogue see?
I think it's more, I don't see that coming next year, this new year, 2017. I see at first a huge surge in the economy. There's going to be a lot of new investment in infrastructure that is going to create jobs, that is going to expand the economy, but the price will be that we will probably add another $3-4 trillion to our public debt. Which means the danger is that if Trump, now some people believe he might not do it until his second term, but there's a tension that's going to happen where the dollar gets stronger and interest rates rise. That means that emerging economies are going to suffer. So it won't be coming from America directly. It'll be from the strain that's going to happen if there's an economic crash from what's going on in Europe, what's going on in China. Actually, I would say the people saying the housing bust is American are misreading it. I would say they're misreading a housing bust, real estate bust in China.
Now, that's an interesting take. Nobody's really brought that up.
Yes, it's the Chinese have really inflated their housing market much worse than what we ever did in 2008. However, China's not the same kind of economy. It's well, we could go on for an hour about that, but suffice it to say that the Chinese actually, I'm going to say something pretty outrageous, but I think
not you.
I'll be proven right. The Chinese leadership actually look at Trump as something very refreshing. It's somebody who's a tough negotiator. A lot of our leaders who have not been tough have been exploited by other leaders because it's viewed as if you're a nice guy in office, you're weak.
It's a weakness.
Yeah. And there's some truth to that. You know, nice guys, really good leaders have not been wonderful, nice guys that you could have a beer with or something. They have been, you know, even Franklin Delano Roosevelt and President Lincoln was a real political animal. If people could look at the real life of Lincoln and not the Hollywood monument of Lincoln that's been portrayed. And in Trump, I see that potential. I mean, he's not going to be some professor from Harvard who likes to talk a lot. He's going to do. He's a man of action. He's not a passive aggressive like the outgoing president. He's got a big narcissistic ego. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But show me any great leader that's done anything for this country that isn't a narcissist in some way or another. And so one has to then appeal to that narcissistic instinct rather than do what a lot of people are doing. Is always a narcissist. We're just going to disrespect him. Well, frankly, all of you who are listening to this in various degrees are your own narcissists. You have an ego, and so you know maybe his ego looks bigger than yours, but maybe you hide your ego a little more than he does. So there's a certain honesty in Trump's big ego. In fact, in Trump, there's an innocence that I've never seen in a president. So you need to, because I said he's an open channel, people need to positively give him feedback. He's a big Leo rising, multiple flexible Gemini sun, which means being a Leo, he wants, in his rising sign, how he expresses himself in the world, how you view him. He wants to win, not just succeed in what he's doing, but he wants to win to get your attention and your love. So, you know, in the power of communication, you don't judge the other's state and demand them to understand you. If you really want to be empowered in communication, even if you're talking to a big ego narcissist, you need to use the language of a big ego narcissist will understand. If you feel that you're talking to idiots but you want to convey a message to them, find the language, empower yourself to find the language that even a caveman can understand. That's it, self-empowerment and communication. And the vast majority of us, when we look at communication with others, we expect the others to take our power to understand us when we are not clear, when we are not speaking their language. So, you know, if you've got a man who even admits he's an 8-year-old that hasn't changed much, speak to that innocent 8-year-old. I'll tell you something else. If you speak negatively, if you cast out an 8-year-old, guess what happens? You'll get the sum of all your fears. You will get the fascism that you're worried about.
All right, John, let's go to the calls here for you. We'll start by going to Gary in Eagle Point, Oregon. Hey, Gary, thanks for calling.
Wow, man, I was a little bit upset until this next guest came on.
Well, good. I'm glad. We don't want you upset.
I wanted to rebut the things that were said before because they kind of upset me about Trump. But I think it's John. Is that correct?
John Hogue.
Yeah. Wow. You kind of calmed me down, John. Thank you very much. But that's and to the reverse was talking about Trump and all that, and I'm independent, and I've got a little bit of a developmental disability and stuff, so things kind of come hard to me. But you know, I harvest what I can when I'm talking. But you know, that's what I drew out from the last segments. Is like, hey, wait a minute, George. You know, these guys are like talking down to Trump. I thought Trump was supposed to be good. I'm an independent, you know, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go with the businessman. And then these guys come on and they're talking down today. But John here, thank you, John, very much.
We've got them all, Gary, different views. That's what the show's all about.
Absolutely.
So you predict a good year in 17?
What's that, sir?
You predict a pretty good year in 17?
Oh, hallelujah.
Good. We need one.
Hallelujah. And thank you, John. Thank you, George.
All right, Gary. Enjoy.
Thanks, Gary.
Jeff in Culver City. Go ahead, Jeff, California.
Hey, thanks again, George. And first off, congratulations on a great 14-year run.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mr. Hogue, with Trump's win, which I seen in a dream 40 days before he actually won, it seems to me that his win means 4 years, at the very least, of pure hell here in the United States as well as overseas. It's almost as if all of the usual suspect troublemakers, domestic and international, are just watching and waiting for Trump's first day in office to begin all kinds of mayhem. But my question is, Mr. Hogue, do you believe that this will, in fact, be a disastrous 4 years for Trump's administration, the country, and the world in general? Or do you believe that all of the usual suspects who are hell-bent on causing problems will just suddenly stop their activities and fear what Trump might do to them? I'll take the answer up there.
Thanks for this great question. And my answer is yes, hell is going to be let loose. Chaos is going to happen, but there's a different way to look at it. It can be the chaos that you fear. That is possible, especially if the American people don't engage their president and give him feedback and give him positive feedback and hold him to his promises, some of that he did. That's true. But there's a way to look beyond the usual way we're afraid of things, and chaos is actually a necessary element in creation. If something is going to be a force of chaos that upsets and shakes up the stasis that progressive movements have been in, the stasis that conservative movements have been in, and moderate movements, that can be an opportunity that's really good. Giving birth to something, as any woman knows, is full of chaos and pain. But it could actually work towards creating a new life. And there's a quality about that Trump has brought in. He's not even aware of it, but he is going to shake things up. And yes, it could be the sum of all your fears. It could be the sum of a lot of conservative fears that I also mentioned. But what it's going to do, I hope, is wake this country up and get the American people to stop taking for granted their freedoms, stop taking for granted that their systems of thinking are working, because they're not. I mean, the lesser of two evils syndrome that the left has been into has completely given them the sum of all of the stupidity of that habit. That to pick, and I hope what will happen to the Sanders people is that they need to get somebody who stops just talking about revolution, but is actually willing and ready to have actually threatened Clinton at the convention with saying, if you don't follow what we want to do, we won't vote for you.
But what a divided nation, John. When the loser wins by 2 million popular votes, this is going to be a tough 4 years.
Well, here's the way it is. We've entered a period I've long been talking about on the show for years, for the 14 years that we've been doing this, and before when you were in St. Louis.
Yep.
We get towards the 2020s, we enter a period of potentially a second civil war or a peaceful American revolution. And that means we reach a critical mass where things have got to give. Somebody's got to throw a wrench into the system, which is dead, moribund, and just not working for us. This outcry from people, which had Trump or Sanders, was a real outcry. And you all need to remind the one outsider that survived the establishment trying to stop this from happening is now your president. Like I said before, he's an open channel. He is essentially an innocent man, and you can give him your feedback, and he will channel it. So if you stay in fear, I'm not saying there aren't reasons to be afraid, but I'm saying is you are disempowered by being in fear. You need to rise up to this as a challenge. You need to all change. And snap out of your box, snap out of your habits, and actually redefine what America is. One thing that's important to understand about Trump is he's come just after a thing in astrology that happens that in layman's terms means that every 30 years Americans have the opportunity to do what they do best. That's redefine what it is to be American, redefine what the American dream is. Donald Trump has been positioned now to be your president during that time of redefinition. So I challenge all of you to celebrate this change, to not be comforted, but to rise to this challenge and help this president work for you.
I love it. John, thank you for being on the program for so many years, and thank you for being on in the future, too, my friend.
I really appreciate you, George, and everybody there at Coast, and thank you for allowing me a space to share my ideas.
The prophecy of John Hogue, and let me tell you something. He's one of a kind. Up next on our prediction moment, Anthony Carr joins us. He is the world's most documented psychic, and we'll be talking about some of the predictions he has made in the past and what he sees in the future on Coast to Coast AM. And, of course, this being our anniversary, let's check in with a few people who have made Coast to Coast what it is now. Here's Karen Dahlman, Miss Ouija Board. Hi, Karen. Happy New Year.
Hey, George, Happy New Year's to you, and congratulations on a wonderful 14 years of successful programming.
What a fun run it's been for us, Karen.
Oh, it's been an exciting run, be a part of the show, for the listeners, for every night we got this great programming, and it opens our hearts, our minds, our soul. Couldn't ask for more. Although we could ask for 14 more years with you, I sure hope that happens.
Let's hope it does, and of course, 14 more years of you talking about why you love the Ouija board.
Oh, I'd be loving to do that. You know I would.
All right, thanks, Karen. You have a great new year. And, of course, another one of our dear friends and guests, pharmacist Ben from criticalhealthnews.com. Hey, Ben.
Hey, George. Congratulations, man. 14 years, and I second it. Another 14 years will be awesome. I've been a fan, as you know, since the beginning, and I can't tell you how much more educated and informed I am of the work.
Well, thank you for everything that you do, and Doc Wallach and Joanne Conaway and the whole team that really delivers great health information to so many people, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's Ben Fuchs, Pharmacist Ben. You hear him a lot on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, up next, Anthony Carr joins us, the psychic. Okay, welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you. And again, thank you for joining us on our 14-year anniversary night. The world's most documented psychic, Anthony Carr, modern day Nostradamus, predicted 9/11, Operation Desert Storm, the death of Pope John Paul, the killer tsunami, the discovery of the Titanic, and so many other things. His father, by the way, taught Harry Houdini, the escape artist, how to dive in deep water. And here's Anthony back on Coast to Coast. With or without the trumpet, Anthony, what do you have?
Funny you should mention the word Trump. Anyway, you failed to mention my incredibly accurate hit that Hillary Clinton would be the first woman president.
Well, I was going to bring that up.
Well, you know what? Let's get rid of the elephant in the room. Namely, I and several other of your very competent psychics and astrologers, notably John Hogue, we all said, no, Hillary Clinton's going to win, that's it. And then there's a pause, but you know, he's a wild card, you know. There's still that, we were all hedging our bets. And I had this, you know, the last 6 months or so, I had this nagging feeling right in the pit of my stomach, you know, the solar plexus, the gut feeling, you know. And some little thing kept saying, you know what, this guy, he could win, he could win. Then I got a call from A&E's History Channel in New York, and I think John Hogue was also on there,
right.
But I declined to appear.
How come?
For a couple of reasons. Sure, they offered to pay and fly me there and sleep me there, but you wouldn't give me any pocket money to walk around and shop in New York. You know.
that would cost more than the expenses to get you
there.
there.
Absolutely. Plus, coming from Toronto, of course, is going through the customs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
All that kind of thing. So, but you know what? I'm just as glad that I didn't, because I probably would have said the same thing. Oh, she's going to win, you know, but... And the other thing is, people kept saying, because in my personal friends, I said, you know what, I got a funny feeling this guy's, he's all over the place. I know he could win. They said, well, why don't you change your mind? I said, I can't, because 10 years ago in my book, which I have to put out every year, Stargazers, Predictions and Prophecies, and of course the one or two words that got me off the hook actually is this one here. The world is stunned by an unexpected candidate for the presidency of the United States, which of course Trump was, who will make former British Prime Minister Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher look like a panty waist. Now, this was back in, 2017? It was like 10 years ago, 207 or 206.
That's a long time prediction.
But I believe Hillary Clinton to be the next, in brackets, possibly de facto U.S. president. Now, there's the hook.
And you saw that 10 years ago?
Sorry?
You saw that 10 years ago?
Well, 10 years ago, and I put it in print. So how can everybody's telling me to back off. And, of course, if you've looked at the books I've sent you and Lisa Lyon over the last 3 or 4 years, that was always in there continually.
Anthony, let me ask you this, though. When you get these predictions, how do they come to you? I mean, some people get into a trance.
Well, it's just an overwhelming, as I've described to Lisa, like an oceanic feeling, which I've been seeing around her lately, something very big in the oceans and cruise ships or some big thing you guys might be doing in the water, something like. Apparently you've done that before, but I didn't know that. But I feel a whole lot more of that stuff coming up for Coast to Coast with George Noory. And what I had originally about her was, just this lady is going to rise very high in politics. She's going to possibly be coming. Now, I could have just said, I shouldn't have put such a fine point on it and said she will be the first female president, but I did. But she did come up, and she, climbed higher and higher and higher. But you know something? Don't get me wrong, I don't have any great love for Hillary Clinton or anybody specifically.
Right, and everybody should know you're a Canadian, right? You're a Canadian.
I don't believe in flip-flopping. I'm not going to suddenly cross the floor to the other party, no matter what. I have to stick by what I said and what I predicted, and that's what I did. Of course, again, she did win the popular vote. Now, Al Capone, he was the de facto mayor of Chicago, and he wielded all the power, and the jury mayor, whose name I can't even remember, was just his puppet. But anyway, that's where that is, and it's the first time, that I'm not the greatest fan of Trump anyway. I don't care much for spoiled rich kids.
Well, at least you're honest based on your
I
views.
respect. Well, there's a former friend. I was going to say a lady in Las Vegas who's he was the musical director for the Coasters. Do you remember the Coasters?
Oh, great group. Absolutely.
5 times removed. Her name's Brenda Bouchard. She's married to the orchestra leader of Rich Little.
By the way, it was Big Bill Thompson was the mayor of Chicago.
That's right, Big Bill Thompson. Yeah. Right, that's right. Anyway, and when Trump was President-elect Trump was elected, and I sent out that press release. I said, "Congratulations, America! You've just managed to put Bozo in the White House."
Jesus, don't hold back, Anthony.
Well, you wanna see the emails? I must have received 50,000 emails.
I bet.
Of course, it's Greenland, the other half, including this lady here.
Hate you.
She tore a piece off me like you wouldn't believe.
Be careful. You're on radio now.
Well, I would not read this lady. I always thought the butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, but.
Okay, but I agree with you that Hillary, of course, obviously got the popular vote, as I predicted.
Right.
During election night, when everybody said, "Oh my God, look, this is going to be a landslide," I said, "Wait a minute, something very weird is happening here, and she's going to win by the popular vote, much higher than what anybody else has." And
well,
she
I'm glad that I put in here the de facto president.
2 million, but okay, so let's.
The main reason I really hate Trump is because he proved me wrong in front of all of America here. For that.
Well, you got to temper that though. As I told Hogue, who said, "Oh my God, I finally lost an election," I said, "John, you haven't lost it yet. Because the popular vote might be the way that this goes. That's the way psychics react. You guys don't psychically understand the Electoral College.
Oh, not at all.
But you pick it up on the popular people.
People ask me for empirical data. I don't know. Not only am I psychic, because I'm Italian, so I just go by instinct.
All right, next thing. You say...
Here's the other... Well, first, let me congratulate you on the 14-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Of course, numerologically, 4 and 1 is 5, and that'll be a very up and down year for this year for you, ups and downs.
Oh, great! That's just what I need.
Around and new opportunities, and things coming your way you didn't expect. Happy anniversary to you, George, and thank you for allowing us this platform to vent our spleen.
Absolutely. Now,
and we'll see what happens with Trump's plutocracy. But Trump has to remember one thing. He's an old man like I am. He could drop dead any time as well.
Well, let's not talk about that.
Now, here's an interesting aside you might be interested in, and your listeners. According to Jacqueline Stallone, he constantly phones Sylvester, because apparently they're good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And on election night, in a couple of days leading up to it, "Are you sure your mother said I'm going to win this? Are you sure? Are you good?" And she did this chart, and to her credit,
she's good.
She's a very good astrologer, let me tell you.
She's good. Okay, you say that if the next pope is named Peter, we're all in trouble. How come?
Well, according to Saint Malachi, who named all of the popes from his time, which is about 10th or 11th century, through sort of encoded quatrains like Nostradamus, And for instance, one of the popes I had predicted would die shortly, be murdered in office, which is Pope John Paul I, and he referred to him as the Pope of the Sliver Moon. The Sliver Moon. Well, nobody knew what that meant. Sliver Moon. Well, of course, 34 days later, he was found dead in his bed after drinking a cup of
yes, under
cocoa.
very strange circumstances.
He never saw the full moon of his office, of his papacy. So that's what that meant. If the next pope, this one or the other, should be named Peter, then we're all in big trouble. So what I should, by the way, I meant to ask you again another. Do you have a CD out there, George? Do you have your singing or anything?
No, we have a what we call the Holiday Magic Coast Style CD out, Anthony, which benefits veterans. Proceeds go to the veterans, but it was a holiday song that I sang on and some other guests, and we should have had you on with your trumpet, for crying out loud.
Saxophone. See, but so can we order it? Can I?
Yeah, it's on Amazon if you want, and again, the proceeds go to veterans.
Well, that's great. Well, I come of an Army family, including my mother, who was in the middle of the London Blitz as an ambulance driving nurse, loading the dead and dying and all that stuff. And grandfather was at Vimy Ridge, and I was in the 48 Highlanders, So I will definitely order that, and I'll get my techie guy, Justin.
You'll find it. Just say Holiday Magic Coast Style CD, and you'll find
Holiday Magic.
Yep, on Amazon. You predict.
Get it.
You predict
anyway,
some volcanoes too.
Here's what I said about Hillary. Still.
Well, let's get off Hillary. I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about?
No, too many politics tonight.
Well, this is
get into the good juicy stuff.
She'll conquer even greater political pinnacles than merely the office of the presidency. For some reason, her legacy will. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not greatly in love with actually any woman politician, but I really have a strong feeling that she's not down yet, and there's more, and her legacy will be something other than running for the office of the president.
All right. Well, you're one of the first to say that. So
you want to? Should I run down some of these that I sent to
Let's go through. Yeah. Let me throw some questions your way. You talked about volcanoes, big ones. What's going on there?
The Earth's atmosphere, as you know, is changing. The polar caps are melting. Some of these oil companies have drilled down below the ice caps in search of oil and other precious minerals, and they've come up with tropical vegetation, petrified, that is over 40 million years old. So it makes you wonder, what happened? There must have been a polar flip. The Earth has flipped its lid, as it were, a couple of times since its inception. So all of this stuff about nuclear waste, what's it, oil fuel, fossil fuels polluting the atmosphere, I believe it has absolutely very, very insignificant effect on what's happening to the planet. I think we're just getting ready for another major upset, as in the Great Biblical Flood, the Ice Age. It'll have very, very little to do of getting rid of emissions and don't drive your car to work. Well, yeah, it may be locally and but in the eye of the universe, it's time for a cleaning out, and I think this is what happens to these planets, including us, every 15 or 20,000 years.
Well, two simultaneous volcanoes.
Well, that'll be because the crusts and the center of the Earth, the molten lava and all that, will, like one of those gyroscopes, push itself too much to one side.
Well, they're all connected, I think.
Yep. And when you see that, I do believe that will usher in the beginning of a whole new era. Now, don't forget, when you talk about fulfilled predictions, one of them, several years ago, in those same books, my book of prophecy and predictions I've sent you over these few years now, said I saw millions and millions of Americans moving north because of the climate.
And north means you meant into Canada.
Into Canada, and specifically the Northwest Territories, which I believe will become more temperate. And of course, I hadn't counted on the great panic that Trump would cause, because our government, what's the word I'm looking for? Our government computers are blowing a gasket with people, Americans, requesting what it takes to immigrate to Canada. So that's how much fear that Donald Trump has instilled in the hearts of at least half of the Americans, to the point where they can't accommodate all of the requests and all of the inquiries.
You promised me no more politics.
I didn't, did I?
Yeah,
I mean, is that political? I thought, okay, back to the Earth's crust and core.
That's right. I mean, you obviously don't like Donald. We know that. So.
No, well, you know what? I got to say, even through all that, I still begrudgingly have to agree with some of the things he says. But nobody mentioned this quatrain from. I'm surprised that. John didn't, or a couple of the others. Of course, he seems to be your most prominent man. And this here I found in a book by Peter Lorre. It's Nostradamus, 2003 to 2025. Peter Lorre. I was thinking, oh, I'm a dirty rat. Anyway, he says, quote, "One day the great powers will become friends." So you have Putin. And you have
Russia and the United States, and that could happen.
Well, you know what? Well, let me finish this. One day, the great powers will become friends, and their power will increase. America will be at the height of its power. To the man of blood, you take that any way you want, the color of his hair or he's a type A personality. To the man of blood, the opportunity will be given. The man, beware the man with the orange helmet. Orange helmet? Now, he goes on, but the two will not remain united for long, and in 13 years they will surrender to the Middle East. There will be much loss on both sides, and Pope Peter will be needed.
13 years from now.
And it says quatrain C5V78 with a little 2 to the second power.
That's a Nostradamus?
Yeah, Nostradamus from this book by Peter Lorre. So here's my prediction. I'll just read them on. I predict President-elect Donald Trump is going to march us down the path to hell and straight into World War III. Mother Russia's mandate is always
Anthony, you just promised me no more Trump.
No, no, we're done.
All right, no more. No more.
Russia.
No more. Now, you talk about a horrible mid-air collision.
Yes. I was sitting pondering my navel, and I came up with this again, like a sudden crash or two crashes again over the top of New York City, and as you know, I probably was the closest to predicting 9/11 way back when, and I've got, unfortunately, the same feeling. I don't know how. It seems to come from within the city of New York itself. There's something going on. There's spies. There's traitors, and I would admonish.
Hold on, Anthony. We're at the break. We'll come right back with more because I want to talk about that, about the mid-air collision. It's a horrible story, but I want to get it on the record. We'll be back. Our 14-year anniversary tonight, and a number of participants and people who have made Coast to Coast what it is today, including, of course, our fill-in host, Connie Willis, who features her Where's Willis program all the time as well. Hey, Connie, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and happy 14th. You know, George, I don't think people really realize that aren't in broadcasting what it means to be in the same place for 14 years, especially radio. That's rare.
It is rare, but I got to tell you, it has been one heck of a ride, Connie. And you know what? I've got, like, as Anthony Carr will talk about, the Benjamin Button syndrome. I feel like I'm getting younger and younger as the years go by.
I love Benjamin Button. What a great movie that was or is. And Well, you know what? You're looking better every time. I know I commented recently on your last pictures are very sharp looking. They're very nice. And hey, you know what? You're just getting hipper. What can we say?
You got to do it. And you're enjoying the program yourself when you fill in?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Come on. Who doesn't want to be on Coast to Coast? It's king. And, if you were going to ask me where's Willis, I was going to say in the middle of a queen size bed right now.
Sleep. Well, I got to tell you, and I had mentioned this Friday night, that after I was on your fill-in show in Louisville, Kentucky on WHAS, you had mentioned a fellow by the name of David Whitman, who you said was a mentor of yours. And
a mentor, yes.
David and I went to the University of Detroit together. I'm 19, he's 20. He's working at a television station. He's from Cleveland, and he wants to go home for Christmas. And they won't let him unless he finds somebody to fill in for him. And so he comes to me because we were all friends in school, and he said, George, would you do me a favor? I work at WXYZ TV, and I need you to fill in for me for 2 weeks, or they won't let me go home for Christmas. Would you do it? And he said, it pays $2 an hour. And I went, David, done. I'll do it. And so I did for 2 weeks. And then when he came back, they said, David, the guy you recommended, we like him so much, we're keeping you both. And that was the beginning of my broadcast career, and he was responsible for that. What a small world.
It is a small world, and you know what? You got to know this. I was like 15 looking up to him, watching him on news, and just fell in love with his style and his technique and just his personality. And hey, I was president of his fan club, and I'm serious. We had a real fan club for him, and I've known him ever since.
All right, thanks, Connie.
Great.
And thanks what you do for us.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. And Tom tells me we have a surprise guest here for the anniversary party. Hello there.
Mr. George, I'm calling from the bursar's office of the University of Detroit, Mercy, and there seems to be a balance here of about $43, and we are wondering if you would be so kind as to remit a check.
You mean after
take a money order?
After 40 years,
MasterCard, Visa. We'll even take a Crowley's charge card.
We will do that. Now, the name, who is this?
Well, this is a friend of yours that actually gave you gainful employment a long time ago at 40 cents above minimum wage. In 1969, the minimum wage was $1.60, and if you made $2 an hour at WXYZ, we're highly
David, is this you?
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God. I was just talking about you.
Pardon me? Yeah, that's what I hear.
Isn't it a small world?
Have ears.
It is David Whitman is the person I was just talking about, folks, who helped me. And was I accurate with that story? You needed me to fill in for you?
So. I don't remember getting 2 weeks off for Christmas, but, in 2 weeks in Cleveland?
In Cleveland, that's right.
Of course, if I was coming out of Detroit, it probably wasn't so bad. And it was Mom and Dad and my brothers, so it was all good.
It was a small world. Huh? What are you doing now?
I am, I don't want to say retired. Let me just say at leisure. I'm in Orlando, actually in Winter Park, a little town just outside of Orlando, where we lived before when I was here. And oddly enough, I was here for 10 years, went home, and the magic 14 years in Cleveland, which is where I wrap things up. So right now, the station went a different direction. I bet you've never heard that.
Oh, yeah.
And so did I.
And whatever happened to our old buddy Don Lark?
You know, Don was an anchor for years in, I want to say Hartford. And then I believe, in fact, he and I ended up working for the same guy. Bill Applegate, who's a giant in the industry. He is retired.
Was this the Bill Applegate who was at WJBK at the time?
Yes.
He was a reporter.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about a small world, he married my high school sweetheart.
Jeez.
And later on in my career, apparently that worked out quite well. And he and Kathy were in Cleveland, and I was in Orlando, as I am now, looking for work, kind of how things come around. And he basically, in his gruff voice, said, Whitman, you want the job or what? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I spent 14 years there. That seems to be the magic tonight, is 14.
I love it.
14 years.
Hey, David, Connie has given me your phone number, so I'll be in touch with you.
Well, listen, thank you so much for including me. You've done wonderful work. I just don't know how you do it. I mean, how much coffee does a man like you consume on an average night?
And you know what? I don't drink coffee.
Good Lord. How do you do it?
I have no idea, but I'm not going to stop, David.
Well, how do you know if you're east or west of the Rockies at this hour?
Does it matter?
No, not with the digital world we have.
You got it,
and
David. You take care. Thank you for participating.
Take care and all the best, George.
All right, I love it. Yeah, I mean, there's the guy who helped get me my very first job when I was 19 years old in broadcasting. Truly remarkable. Okay, we're going to come back in a moment with your questions with Anthony Carr next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. We're with Anthony Carr, the psychic. His website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. One of his best-selling books is called Stargazer, by the way. Anthony, let's get back to this tragedy over New York, where you see this midair collision between two commercial planes and 600 lives lost. I mean, God, I hope you're wrong on this one, but
600 and change, to be specific.
Jeez.
I would admonish the authorities, New York, to investigate small airports. It seems to stick in my mind's eye. Small airports. And
is it an intentional collision or accidental?
No, it's intentional. It's some subterfuge going on around a couple of the small airports in New York. Helicopters and up and down, and some of these guys taking flying lessons or something like that. That's about the best I can do. I got the month of November again. Of course, one of the fulfilled predictions of this last year, I always cover myself by 2017 and beyond, because the parameters of 12 months are not recognized by the universe.
Well, and dates are very difficult in the psychic world.
As I said here last year, in May, then October, and November, this world shall tremble in fear. Brackets, first prophesied Stargazer predictions and prophecies for 2015. Then, to wit, quote, this in the New York Times, Donald Trump is elected president November 4th. New York Times, if that doesn't make you tremble in fear, nothing will, unquote.
Yeah, there you did it again.
Hey, I'm reading your newspaper. I'm not coming from me.
You did it again.
How come Mr. Polk can go on name about politics and I can't?
Because you had your share already. That's
okay. All right. So anyway, seriously, more investigation. Not to take it lightly, offhandedly. It's almost like 3. Does Long Island have an airport itself? A small?
I'm sure it does. I have flown into LaGuardia and JFK. I'm sure it's got a little airport. I'm not sure.
Whatever it is, it seems to emanate from a small airport. One there, it's like a triangulation. One there, and one and two other to form a triangle around New York. This needs to be in the, how many of our detractors, people like I'm losing my mind here.
You seem to be.
Randy, James Randi.
Randy.
Well, if these people are so psych, why don't they want? Well, 9/11, I phoned the papers, I phoned the authorities, I gave them a ballpark time.
How far in advance did you do that?
Oh, well, that was the September. That would have been December 31st. In the Toronto Star, they put down all of my predictions. Actually had me posed in the beach with my arms looking heavenward, which is kind of corny, but so they had plenty of time, and that newspaper is syndicated around the world, and I phoned a few of the papers and people I know, and our mutual late friend there, Michael Luckman, who also tried to get in touch with the authorities there, but nobody listens.
Were you questioned after the fact?
Oh, yes. And,
I would think so.
Again, the Toronto Star wrote a story in support of my predictions. They said, well, I don't want to get into it again, but they also did at a thing on one day the village idiot being elected to the presidential office. Now say no more, but that's right under the one they wrote about the 9/11 and how accurate my prediction was at that time. And to tell you the truth, I really don't believe half the things I say myself.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
Well, I mean, I don't know, and I try to explain this to my students. The things that they always ask, how does one become psychic? The best way to explain it, again, is that gut feeling that it's something, as I was telling you, as the election drew nearer, that little knot in my solar plexus, that voice, that gut pull me, that no matter what I'm spouting, the opposite is going to happen. You should always, always go with your instincts. But as a human being, you know, I'm not that well formally educated, and I'm not that knowledgeable about...
but you play a mean saxophone.
Well, speaking of which, I do have a website there for the new band called theboydgang.ca.
Spell that.
Well, Alonzo Boyd was a notorious bank robber around here in the 50s. He used to hang around my godfather's place.
You named your band after him?
Well, yeah, because he was like he looked like Earl Flynn. He was, you know, a rogue, handsome.
Dashing,
Anyway, it's B-O-Y-D, Edwin Alonzo Boyd. Movies have been made about him. He used to come up. Trouble is, he got arrested all the time and did a lot of time, and including with my uncle. So my mother once said to him, you know, you should find another line of work. He's not very successful at this.
All right, let's go to the calls. First-time caller, Howard in Ohio. Go ahead, Howard.
Hey, how you doing?
Great.
Never called, but I'm glad what I'm sorry. Gentleman's man we're talking to right now.
Anthony Carr.
Anthony
or Tony. Just call me Tony Carr. Anthony.
Tony Carr. Cool. Perfect.
Don't call me Lace.
I have a question for you. This is my first time calling, but I listen every single night for I don't know how many years. I don't have enough time to even think about that. But thank you, George. But anyhow, now it seems to me like I really like listening to you, but you're too hung up on George Trump. I think it might be inhibiting some of your predictions because of that fact. And I think George is right, but also I'm not here to hack on you, Anthony. I swear I'm not here to hack on you. I respect you in all bits. But it honestly does, and I don't think you see it. But also, I don't see how you're putting I'm not a Hillary fan, and I'm not a Donald Trump fan. But I'd sure rather have him there than her. But whatever. Move on to your prediction of these 13 years. Now, I don't understand.
No, that was Nostradamus' prediction.
Well, I'm also in the midst of reading a book that has a lot of Nostradamus predictions in it,
right.
And I did not see the 13 years of him saying that in the book that they quote some of his stuff from Iraq's Armageddon and a few other novels that I'm writing about what you're talking about. Now, I've read also books that says like the United States and Russia come together and dominate the Middle East and whatever that means and what countries I don't know, but and then there's 13 years of peace. So I'm just curious. I'm sure you have other outlooks of what you said about that.
Well, let me ask you this, basically, Anthony. You've read the Book of Revelation.
Pretty much.
What do you think of that, based on something that's prophetic?
Well, I think it will probably come to pass more or less pretty accurately. Is it? Of course, I believe. I'm not one of those. Not one of those people who believe in that kind of a God. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa God is coming to town. He's making a list, checking it. Mm-hmm. I don't believe, but I do believe, as you know, that we were created by a race of star travelers, and they can pretty well see into the hearts of each person in the same way that computers from Washington can look right into a Adobe hut somewhere in the Mideast and aim a bomb right to it. And they can eventually, if there's a resurrection of the dead to be reborn again, is through the cloning of the DNA, which I think gave rise to that hymn there, the leg bones connected to the hip bone, all that kind of stuff. So I think everything that Revelation says, and if we go back to one of my predictions years and years ago about Revelation is the mark of the beast, and when I ran into Gorbachev, I pointedly, literally pointed at his head and said, which he had covered up.
He's got that birthmark, right?
And I said, you do realize that you do possess the mark of the beast mentioned in Revelation.
No, you said that to him?
Well, yeah.
Of course, knowing you would.
Then I got hauled off by the mounted police and all the security and everything. Well, you talk about kismet or fate. I work out and I work to raise money for Variety, the children's charity.
Yes.
You might be familiar.
I know that.
And I've been a member at this tent here, as we call it in Toronto, for 35 years. And the day Gorbachev came to Toronto, came specifically to Variety Village, and I said to myself, you know what, I'm getting old and I can't be bothered pushing myself onto world celebrities like I've been doing for the last 40 years. I think I'll just wait till he's finished. Now, he was supposed to be his entourage, and he was supposed to be there. They were supposed to be there at noon for a luncheon and a walkabout in the main room, the big, not an outhouse, but the outfield, the field house where all the track is and everything. So I purposely lagged behind, stayed away, and I got there around 2 o'clock. As I'm pulling into the place, the high school, Birchmont High School, I think it was right beside the Variety Village. All the kids were out cheering, and I knew it wasn't for me. And as I'm pulling into the lot with the security, they all knew me there, so they let me through. And plus, I have a press card because I do the syndicated stargazing column for the Toronto Sun. And they opened up, they let me, and I looked behind me, and here was Gorbachev's entourage. He was late. So I went into the gym and having a workout, and then I saw this, and I walked by and I saw the opening, the media scrum in the form of a horseshoe were on my side and like a mandible, and the other side, Gorbachev and his crew. And all of a sudden, the mayor was greeting Gorbachev and handing him something, and obsequiously bowing, scraping. And I saw it looked like the Red Sea parting in the open and without thinking. And if you think about these things, you'll never do them.
So that's what you did. Anthony, we're out of time. Thank you for your predictions. We got them written down. We'll see what happens. More to come on Coast to Coast AM. And up next, of course, internationally known astrologer Linda Sherman joins us for her thoughts, her predictions, and yep, we will take your phone calls as well. And now, of course, as we continue celebrating our anniversary, Joe Meyer, of course. Joe has been a veteran on Wall Street for years. He knows what's happening in the financial markets more than anyone, has been a great contributor to Coast. And Joe, thanks for being part of our programming.
Good morning, George. Happy New Year to you and your listeners all over the world, and congratulations on your 14-year anniversary as host of Coast to Coast AM, George.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for participating in that long run with us, and many more to come for us, okay?
I did my first show May 1st, 2004, and we did our first show together March 8th, 2005. Boy, time flies when you're having fun, George.
It sure does. Quick prediction for 2017, Joe.
I think the markets are going to go a lot higher. I originally said 20,000 in the Dow, but I think longer term through certainly the first term of Donald Trump, we could see 25,000 in the Dow and 3,000 in the S&P 500, George.
That's exciting. Joe, thanks again for everything you do. Joe Meyer, of course, participating in Coast to Coast in our anniversary. Up next, Linda Sherman, the astrologer on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. Linda Sherman is a internationally renowned astrologer, researcher, and she's got a number of clienteles from corporations to finance companies and private individuals. Her website, of course, has been linked up at coasttocoastam.com, soothsayer.com. Linda, always a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you for everything you've done for us.
Well, it's a pleasure, as always, to be on your show, and I also offer my congratulations to you on your anniversary.
This is fun. I like this. But where did the time go, Linda? I mean, you're an astrologer. You've looked at all the things in the skies and everything else. Why is time going by so fast?
Well, that's a very good question. a lot of the slower moving planets have shorter orbs or shorter distances to travel, and we could see that the changes that have been happening on planet Earth in our civilization, both positive and negative, have like speeded up into, I feel like a Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty.
Exactly. Okay, give us your definition of astrology for people who, you know, we have numerologists come on, Glynis McCants and psychics and stuff. What exactly is astrology?
Well, astrology is the study of astronomical events in relationship to cycles and climates and the rising of historic issues in our time. We see a correspondence between planets and positions of planets in our solar system in relationship to the constellations, and we see those correlations happen in connection with things that rise in history. It's like the current planet Pluto has been transiting through Capricorn, and the last time that happened was the Protestant Reformation in Europe, and then after that was the beginning of the American Revolution here. So we're obviously, what is happening along with the Pluto-Uranus square that we've experienced recently is a time of which I have spoken about in both of my books, What Next and the more recent one, Fast Forward. This is a time of revolutionary change and upheaval all over the world. But this, what we've experienced recently here in the United States is certainly indicative of a revolutionary atmosphere. So we pick out what happened before in history, in past times, and then we look at, gee, this is returning. Now, how is that going to express in our times today? And that's what we do in astrology.
Now, when you do your predictions via astrology, do you go after the specific topic and then look at it astrologically, or does that just come to you? Case in point, let's say what's going to happen economically this year. We'll get into that. But, I mean, do you go out and search for it, or does it just come to you?
No, I have to search for it. Yeah, this is where we differ from the psychics that you have had on, which, although we astrologers universally use our intuition, basically we look and see what are the planets going through the signs and making aspects with one another or angular relationships. What do they tell us? And we, of course, construct charts for individuals. That's what I do for a living. I do the charts of people. But we construct the chart for nations. We construct charts for events. There's an astrological birth chart for just about everything. And that's what leads us into the realm of the predictions that we make about what, and I want to say, George, what I feel is very important is none of our predictions are absolute. They tell us that there are tendencies at work. There are issues that are going to be brought up for us historically during these times of a specific nature. What we do as a nation and what humanity does and what each one of us as individuals chooses to do is what eventually forms the present into the future. And I always want to make this clear that astrology isn't a series of predictions that are absolute.
Okay, let's look at 2017 and some of the things that are coming our way, Linda. What are some of your buzz points for 2017?
Well, first of all, I believe that it's going to be a very, very difficult time in the economy because I feel that Saturn, the position of Saturn moving to the center of the galaxy, where it did in 1929, 1987, 88, where Pluto was in 2008, will stimulate a series of serious financial crises on a global level. And I think a lot of it is going to result in the disintegration of the European Union, major currency crises. There's a big one coming up when Venus makes a direct station in April 14th, squared to Saturn. Currency crises,
The result here, my feeling is that we'll, what I call flail. My husband say we're flailiers. The markets will flail back and forth. They will go smash down, and then everybody say, oh, we're recovering and going to new highs. And then they will smash down again and, oh, we're recovering. By the end of the year, when Saturn goes over that position between October and December and then enters the recessionary sign of Capricorn, will probably be the most difficult one that we have here on Wall Street.
Joseph Meyer, right before you came on, the Wall Street expert, thinks of a 25,000 Dow. That is a 25% bump from where we are right now.
Absolutely. Well,
but you don't see that.
I may agree. I can't predict numbers. I did predict on both of my newsletters that the market would reach all-time highs between November and December of this year.
You were right about that.
And it's a matter of my public prediction. And but I do feel that there may be some new highs made, because this year is crazy. You think last year was crazy. This year is, astrologically speaking, the Jupiter-Saturn sextile may keep the real smash from happening until the end of the year. And then there will be layoffs and there will be real problems. And I don't really, it's not my job to get into politics or political preferences or anything like that. But I have constructed, which all astrologers have, a chart, the inauguration chart. And I said months and months ago that my prediction was that one person in this election would win the electoral vote and the other person would win the popular vote. And that whoever gets the presidency may regret that they did it. You say, what was I thinking? Because the chart, the inauguration chart, is so filled with potholes and crises, confusion, and also as the economies, the global economies to which we are attached very strongly, more than at any other time in history, as things kind of fall apart and flail around, it's not for the faint-hearted. And I feel that the real estate markets are going to come down, that the bond markets are going to be in trouble, and stocks will be from time to time, although they also, as your previous guests indicate, may reach some all-time highs before that happens, as they did in 1929, 1987.
That's true. That's true.
They reached these tremendous highs, and my feeling is that's just that much lower that it's going to go down. And my feeling is that this will be, in effect, the bottom of this. See, I feel that we actually were in a global depressionary cycle starting between 2007 and 2008. And the effort to save the banks on the part of the taxpayers, which was, by the way, a collaboration between all the parties. I feel that both Democrats and Republicans all have to share in the blame here. Instead of throwing rocks at each other, they ought to. So my feeling is that bottom of that depression will be in 2020, but it will be in the 2020s that we come out with a new economic paradigm completely. New notions and ideas about what makes the economy work. And in the meantime, I think there's going to be very much of a relocalization. The states are going to be pulling away from the feds. They're going to, well, you've heard of the old term states' rights.
Exactly.
And I think that many of the states are going to be instituting their own reforms, their own direction that they want to go in, and moving further and further away from Washington.
What about earth changes in 2017, Linda?
Yes, I really think it's going to be this year. There was some really serious things going on, but next year, definitely, especially I feel when Mars transits Taurus between April and May, they're going to be, and I'm really concerned about Japan. if you recall, I did predict the Japanese earthquake tsunami.
I remember that.
Big one that happened that damaged Fukushima that has never been fixed. As you know, and radioactive cesium is circulating more and more in the Pacific Ocean. This is an ongoing, it's just a horror. And Japan is in trouble demographically. They have many, many more retired people than people who are young and working, and they're not having large families anymore. And their banking system has been a zombie banking system for a long time. And I feel that Japan is in trouble economically. They need the U.S. The first thing after the election was this Japanese corporate head that visited Donald Trump, says, we're coming over to America. We're going to bring 50,000 jobs.
But you don't see this year an asteroid strike or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No,
well,
I do not. That is something you really have to, the astronomical community, the astronomers, whose whole job is to track what's coming into our orb, what's coming into our solar system, are the ones to best consult about whether they see any danger of an asteroid coming into our system and threatening us. But that is not something, so if I just observe what they tell me, what the astronomers observe and print. So I'm an astrologer, I interpret that. That isn't something that I have seen, but I really feel that the wars and the what I call the religious wars are definitely still there and accelerating.
Well, as a matter of fact, ISIS has just has announced that they're responsible for that tragedy in Istanbul, Turkey,
yes,
the shooting in the nightclub. So, I mean,
ISIS is, even though Americans have gone in to help the Iraqis reclaim Mosul successfully, I mean, they seem to be, ISIL is like a virus. How do you do a virus by blowing up a country, right? It's you have to create vaccinations or conditions under which those viruses really don't proliferate. And right now, those conditions are getting worse rather than better.
Well,
the
I feel
East is heating up and drying up, which nobody talks a lot about, but the facts are the temperatures in Iraq and in similar places are rising and rising. The Nile, Tigris, and Euphrates rivers are drying up, and climate changes, whether it's natural or what the scientists are telling us are man-made, which I think both of those reasons are affecting that region of the world. And all the apocalyptic crises about the end of civilization every 5,200 years, guess what the origin of our civilization is?
Right there.
Mesopotamia, the Middle East.
There.
And these are where the wars are, where the climate is changing most dramatically and seriously. And I think that humanity as a whole is going to have to face things rather than, as I say on my newsletter, we can't run away from these things. We have the intelligence and we have the ability to contact our higher self. One of the things I think your psychics do that they may talk about is they have a capacity to contact something greater beyond our normal obstructed world that we live in. They try to go beyond the obstructions. I think that all of us as human beings, if we raise our consciousness and open our hearts and open our minds, we can get information that many geniuses through the ages have accessed, that for whatever reason, and we can solve our problems. We can reverse I think we're going to invent our way out of using fossil fuel. As I've said on this program in the past, I think we are going to have nuclear fusion, hydrogen fusion, an infinite amount of energy and electricity with absolutely no pollution involved. And there is progress being made in many Livermore laboratory, and then the one in France and the one in Germany, that there's so much progress being made in solving these complex problems of how to do this. And I think in the 2020s, we're going to have nuclear fusion. We're going to have a near-perfect battery, which will enable us to store the energy from solar and windmill, which makes up a relatively small percentage, because when there's no sun and no wind, you have no energy. And when you create a near-perfect battery, we're going to go sustainable. All of these inventions, but I feel the major crises, the climate changes that lie ahead, the weather extremes, and also the tectonics. As I said, I'm concerned about the Ring of Fire in the Pacific. There was another big earthquake in New Zealand recently.
That's right.
And they got hit the year before with a serious earthquake. So I feel that there is an increase in global tectonics of a fairly serious nature coming up this year. That's for sure. And we can't do much about that except try to prepare ourselves. But I think we can do a lot about changing the notions of making economies work for everybody, not just for the 1% and the elite few, and really creating systems that will work for everybody. And we have to be prepared in the next decade or so, 20 years, for a society in which there's next to no employment, or no employment at a reasonable wage.
No, you mean no unemployment?
No, I'm going to say no employment.
You mean like no jobs?
What is happening is there are fewer and fewer and fewer jobs. We're replacing people with robots, computers, various types. It's funny, I'm an elder person, and I remember in the 1950s, when I was a youngster, people were talking about automation replacing human labor. And here it is. It is, and the corporations, which are designed for profit only, a corporation's whole business is to make a profit at all costs.
All right, stay with us, Linda. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and take phone calls and questions for you. And then, of course, this being our 14-year anniversary, I've got some things to say at the end of the show. Okay, welcome back to Coast, our final segment, and your calls with Linda Sherman, of course. Linda, what are you doing these days? What's next for you?
Well, as you know, my book, Fast Forward, Surviving the Race to the Future, I'm still selling that.
Good.
I have an ongoing newsletter where I get 100,000 hits a month on my newsletter.
Beautiful.
And I have a full supply of clients that has been, my business has been doing very well. I have wonderful, wonderful clients from all over the world. And I have people who respond. They send me emails connected to my newsletter. So I'm a very busy person.
Excellent. Let's go to the phones here for you. West of the Rockies, Dawn is in Montana. Hi, Dawn. Go ahead.
Hi. Happy anniversary and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you, Dawn. You too.
I was thinking maybe a big earthquake-like thing out in California, but it opens a rift and fills the Grand Canyon up with water.
Whoa.
Yeah. I thought, I've been thinking of that for a couple of years now.
That's an interesting prediction.
I don't know. I've just been thinking
What do you think of that, Linda? That's a big earth change.
Could it? Yeah.
So, Dawn, you're saying that you see a big earthquake hitting Southern California?
Yeah, like in California, and it makes a fissure under land almost. And the ocean water starts going in and filling up the Grand Canyon, the ends get filled up with rocks where all the earthquake hits there too.
Well, the problem we have with earthquake and volcanic predictions, we can see activity. The problem is seeing how severe it is, and also which areas that it hits. Like you can have an undersea earthquake and get a tsunami that kind of depletes itself by the time it hits the shore, or you can get something that hits exactly right, like the Japanese tsunami and earthquake.
Oh, perfect storm, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly, a perfect storm. And I do see some strong earthquake activity, particularly March, April, of this year coming up. But whether it is as severe, you say you see that psychically?
I've been thinking of it, oh gosh, for a year or more now. And then all of a sudden it's just like, it's
more intense?
More intense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are some people, Linda, geologists, who predict a major earthquake. I don't know if it would disrupt the Grand Canyon or not, but gosh, who knows?
Yes, the fault lines along the west coast of the United States are very, very serious. Inland, and also off the coastal regions, the underlying fault lines off the west coast, the one that the Cascade line that up in Washington State in that region. These are all realities. We just don't know. We know that these things will happen. We're just not sure when they're going to happen. And also, it's complex because other parts can relieve the tensions there. There can be an earthquake elsewhere that relieves the tension in that region and keeps it from being as severe as it could. So I don't see. I'm not a psychic, but I can usually tell when there's going to be increased activity, and there will be this coming year.
Any activity in terms of UFO disclosure or anything like that, Linda?
In terms of what?
UFO disclosure or anything like that?
UFO disclosure. Well, the problem with that is we astrologers don't get into that realm. It's not necessarily forecasted through astrology. I have my personal feelings about that all the UFOs and beings from other planets, I personally, it's just my personal opinion, think have been here. I do believe this. I've spoken to people who've had experiences with this, and millions of people can't be wrong, I say, about that. Now, as far as this year is concerned, concerning either UFOs or visitors from other planets, as an astrologer, I could not answer that question.
We go next to Daniel in Tucson, Arizona. Hi, Daniel. Go ahead.
Well, hi, George and Linda. I want to wish you a happy New Year. And also, I'm an artist, and I have a huge collection of autographed horror, science fiction, and fantasy books. And I know you like that stuff. And I have a huge collection of comic books still. I have a collection of robots, a Robot Commando, and a Great Garloo, and stuff like that. And so my prediction, I would say that very soon they're going to make King Kong. Well, when I used to listen to Art Bell and Ramona every night. Mm-hmm. So, George, what do you think of King Kong?
What do I think of King Kong?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you mean? The
motion picture.
Well, they've had a couple already. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
So you're saying there's going to be another one coming out?
Yeah, soon.
That's your prediction?
Yeah,
Okay, well, you might be right. Who knows? They'd have to make it a little different than the last couple, to be sure. That's an interesting prediction, Linda.
Yes, it's not something I would predict.
A King Kong movie. There you go, Daniel. Thanks. Joe in the Bronx. Hi, Joe.
Hey, George. How you doing?
Great.
Happy 14th anniversary.
Thank you, sir.
Many, many more. Happy New Year to both your guest and yourself. Wanted to ask Linda if she sees anything going awry with the grid, with the electric grid in this country due to maybe terrorism.
The answer is yes.
Oh, boy.
I'm very, very concerned. Recently there was a situation discovered in Vermont, as you know, that was on the news,
yes,
that was connected to their electric grid. No, I feel that cyber terrorism and problems with these kinds of invasions, whether they're attacks on our grid or whether they're simply hackers, such as the Russians hacking into the DNC, I feel this is, and I've written about this on this month's newsletter, soothsayer.com, that I really think, and I wrote in my first book, What Next? I predicted that if anybody wants a steady job, be a person who's expert at writing cybersecurity software. If you want a steady job and to be gainfully employed, that's the area to go, because we have created kind of a monster. We are so interdependent now. And these guys are very, very good. And as soon as you create something that you think is secure, there was an article in Vanity Fair recently about a company that hacked into Apple computer smartphones, which were considered to be the ultimate in security. And they sold this software to heads of nations in the Middle East that wanted to target their dissenters. And it's worth reading that article in Vanity Fair to show the details about that. There is nothing safe from hacking, and I think we're entering a time that no one wanted us to enter, and I do feel that we are vulnerable during this period to terrorist cyber attacks, and that they will appear in 2017.
We go to Bill in Columbus, Ohio now. Hi, Bill. Go ahead.
Hi, George. Congratulations on 14 years.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, I was born in Saginaw, Michigan, January 1st, 1950.
Yeah. Okay,
and,
same year.
I'm a Native American. I don't really believe in prediction, but I was wondering how your guest feels about Al Gore's prediction on climate change.
Climate change? Okay, go ahead, Linda. That's a fair question.
It is a fair question. I believe that climate change is because I believe in science, and the scientists that explain the severity of what's going on with the melting of the glaciers, the melting of the glaciers not only at the Arctic, but on all the world's mountains. The glaciers in which civilizations have depended on fresh water for thousands of years, China, India, the Himalayas, all of this. This is happening. And we could argue about who caused it. I think it's a combination of things. And what Al Gore is predicting, that there could be very, very, very serious consequences all over the world for climate change. Now, having said that, and agreeing with Al Gore about his projections, the science that he's carefully studied, the people that I, on the other hand, as an astrologer, interestingly enough, see a time that lies ahead in the 2020s, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius and then Pluto going into Aquarius, that could coincide with what we would call an extended Maunder minimum, which means a major reduction in flares and storms on the sun for an extended period of time. Now, the last time this happened was the mini ice age in Europe and North America. Now, it's interesting that last year I was having a conversation with my husband about this. I said, what is it that could happen to make things cooler, to sort of give us a reprieve from this massive, intense global warming and the terrible consequences? Because I see the astrology telling me, well, it turns out last year one of the leading experts on sun cycles, she's a physicist and studies the cycles of the sun, published a paper and presented it and said that in the fairly near future, within 10, 20, 30 years, that we may be entering an extended Maunder minimum. And the last time that took place was the mini ice age in Europe and North America. So I felt vindicated.
Linda, do you see something in 2017 which you would just say is the biggest, most pressing issue, good or bad? Any one thing?
I think it's the economy. I think it's investments. There's a series of eclipses in addition to what I talked about with the Wall Street crashes that have occurred under the Saturn transit in the past. It squares the Neptune of the USA and reaches the center of the galaxy. We have a series of eclipses this year that have corresponded with major things. One of them this summer, we have two eclipses, one in Aquarius and one in Leo, in August. And by the way, the solar eclipse is exactly conjunct Donald Trump's ascendant. Exactly. Now, the last time that occurred was in 1998, if you recall, that this hedge fund collapsed, this big hedge fund.
Well, it took a lot of people down with it.
Yes, you remember that. I think it was called Global Capital Management, and you probably remember it, George.
I think they were into gold and everything else, weren't they?
Oh, look, and this was because, what did that hedge fund do? They put call positions, which is a bet that the Russian ruble would rise in value. That was when we were in the frenzy that Russia was going to become a capitalist nation.
It went the other way, didn't it? Jeez.
Which it didn't.
They speculated and they were wrong. Linda, would you quickly give out your website to people?
Yes, my website is Soothsayer, SOOTHESAYER.com, and my book is Fast Forward, Surviving the Race to the Future, which you can order from Amazon.
Great. Linda, thank you for all the service you've been giving us over the years, and let's have many more.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure, George, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap this up, I just wanted to thank some people, of course, this being our beginning of our 14th year anniversary of doing Coast to Coast, and it's been an amazing run, simply amazing. And we're going to continue doing this, God willing, for as long as we can. There have been some people personally for me who have been very instrumental in the development of this program and to keep it going, of course. And as you know, I sign off every show with some special congratulations and thanks. But I want to thank our executive producer, Lisa Lyon, and our senior producer, Tom Danheiser, who have kept me going for 14 years, folks. And you have no idea the work they've put in to just keeping me and this program going. I want to thank our president, Julie Talbot, for having the faith in me. Craig Kitchen, of course, who brought me into the program many, many years ago. Bill May, our vice president. Annie Zadarich, who keeps things going for everybody as well. And for Juan Velasquez, Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladasur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Borelson, George Knapp. I'm George Noory, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone. From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Noory, and welcome to Coast AM. Happy New Year, everybody. 2017. Wow. 16 was a fast year. 2017, we'll have lots to talk about this year. And welcome to our 14th year anniversary party show. Throughout the night, some important coast-to-coast guests will be popping on the program just to say hello. They've been so instrumental in the success of this program over the years, so they will be here, and so will you. And also emerging artists tonight on Coast to Coast AM. Later on in the program, I've got many thanks, personal thanks to people who have been very helpful to me personally with this program. I'll be talking about them as well. Here's what's happening. At least one U.S. citizen was injured during that deadly attack on the Istanbul, Turkey nightclub. And the terrorists responsible for the massacre, who dressed up like Santa Claus, remained at large Sunday evening. At least 39 people were killed, 70 were wounded when a gunman opened fire shortly after a nightclub crowd had celebrated ringing in the new year. The attacker, armed with a long-barreled weapon, killed a policeman and a civilian outside the very popular club at about 1:15 a.m. before entering and firing on the people partying inside. I talked to a person who has resided in Turkey, lived in Istanbul, has been to that nightclub, and he said it's very unusual that they were able to get in with that kind of high-powered weaponry. He just shook his head, and he said Turkey, of course, is all concerned. Douglas Hagman, private investigator, head, of course, the Northeast Intelligence Network, has tracked terrorism for us since 9/11. Doug, this particular situation here, how bad can it get? My gosh.
First of all, happy anniversary, George. And second of all, yes, it's horrific, and most people have grown weary and numb to the news of such terrorist attacks. But our understanding is limited to the graphic images we see, but a very shallow comprehension of the context in which this attack occurred. And we've quickly forgotten that this attack in Turkey is just one of over 24 terrorist attacks that took place in Turkey in 2016 alone, and that doesn't include the failed coup attempt or the assassination of the Russian ambassador back on the 19th. But while the motive for this attack remains speculative, it's going to be attributed to either ISIS or a member of the pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party. It's not going to be the last, as both potential perpetrators and respective agendas are the result of the regional chaos that has been orchestrated and exploited by U.S., Western, NATO, and even Saudi meddling in their global agenda of power realignment. And we also see the exacerbation by the infusion of some 2 million refugees into Turkey over the last 2 years, which, by the way, is a landmass about the size of Texas. That should be yet another illustration of the insanity of this relentless globalist agenda that was set in motion after 9/11 and currently exploited by U.S. foreign policy. And at the epicenter of this, of course, is Syria.
And you know, Doug, the person I know who lived in Turkey, who has been to that nightclub, now lives in the United States, told me, please don't use my name, so I'm not, because they're afraid of just any repercussions. But just returned from Turkey, was out there last week for his sister's wedding, and he said everybody's tense there. I mean, people don't even want to leave their houses. In this particular case, leaflets were handed out a couple days before this tragedy at this nightclub, warning people don't celebrate New Year's. It's not the thing you should be doing. I mean, so that whole country is up in arms now.
Indeed, and rightfully so. Again, well over, I think 29 terrorist attacks, Istanbul, all throughout Turkey. But this is a very exclusive venue, much like the Waldorf, we'll say, in New York City, perhaps at that caliber. But this is horrific, and I do believe it's only going to get worse in 2017.
Oh, gosh, Doug, thank you so much. And in Brazil, a gunman stormed a house party, killed 11 people, including his former wife, an 8-year-old son. Then he shot himself on the head during a New Year's party in Brazil. Jeez. Detroit police opened up an investigation last week after a mummified remain was found in the garage of an occupied home. The home buyer made that shocking discovery. How would you like to come across that? On Wall Street, the rising dollar has been one of the most visible signs of growing optimism in the U.S. economy, and for many other countries, it spells trouble. Most analysts expect that the U.S. currency will even strengthen more in 2017, extending a gain that has boosted the value of the dollar by more than 1/3 since the U.S. credit downgrade in 2011. William Christopher, known for his portrayal of the chaplain Father Mulcahy on the very beloved TV show MASH, has died. He was 84. He died of a form of cancer. In Indonesia, we've got that story in the news at coasttocoastam.com. The world's oldest man celebrates what he claims to be his birthday. Get this, 146 years old. That would make him the oldest recorded person. 146 years old. Of course, he doesn't have a birth certificate. Nobody can really prove it, but he has been able to talk about events that he saw as a little kid, and that would push him back to those years. Really strange. New Year's, of course. It's a time for people to look forward to the new year. Dr. Peter Bregan, our resident psychiatrist, with us. Peter, what do you recommend for people? And Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Happy New Year, and a happy 14th anniversary coming up.
Thank you, sir.
Wow.
Appreciate that. I know it. It went by so fast. And, I mean, time goes by so fast, Peter. How do we make the best of it? I mean, 16 went by like a rocket ship. What's 17 going to be like?
Well, I think 17 is going to be the best year we've all had in a long time. God willing. Happenstance willing.
Yep.
I think we've all got a chance now to really put into practice the most important principles that America was based on, George. You know, I want to go back to my book, Wow, I'm an American, because I think this is going to be a Wow, I'm an American year coming up. You know, we have an opportunity to take these principles, and the thing we can do is apply them not politically, which is a bit out of our control, that we can only do remotely, in our personal lives. And there's 4 things we can do. We can respect the freedom of the people we love and we live with and work with. Freedom. That's what America is about. So we can give up bullying, we can give up arguing, we can give up fighting, and we can learn to build really respectful, individualistic relationships. Our husbands, our wives, our kids, to the extent they're old enough for freedom. The second thing we can do for the new year is take responsibility for everything we do. It is the heart and soul of being an American in this coming year. The one thing we can never do is say, well, I'm not responsible for myself. I didn't make that decision. We got to make every possible decision saying we're responsible for it. The third thing we can do, George, is be grateful. One of the things I know as a psychiatrist now, practicing for decades and decades and decades, is you can't be crazy and grateful at the same time. They don't go together. If you're grateful to nature, to God, to your husband, to your wife, you're going to keep a steady keel. And the fine thing, first of all, and the fourth thing, and I wish this for everyone, realize you're a source of love. And if you don't feel like you're a source of love, become a source of love. Take responsibility for being joyful around the people you care for. Express love. Be happy about them. To me, the essence of love is joy in being aware of and knowing friends, family, pets, nature, God. So that's what I'm hoping for the new year. Freedom, responsibility, gratitude, and let's all become a source of love.
Super, Peter. Thank you. And we'll be talking to you throughout the entire new year. Great guest, Dr. Peter Breggin. Throughout the night, we'll be talking with psychics and clairvoyants about predictions for 2017, reviewing some of their predictions for 2016. And up next is psychic Joseph Jacobs on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. Welcome back to our 14th year anniversary party, and we'll be talking a lot about that throughout the program tonight. Our dear friend Joseph Jacobs, internationally known psychic, has counseled thousands and thousands of people since 1982. He has been with us for years, talking about predictions of past years, years to come, and here he is on Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year, Joseph.
Happy New Year and happy anniversary. It's my anniversary, too, on Coast to Coast.
It is. It really is. I mean, you were with me during the Nighthawk St. Louis days, and then once I started doing Coast to Coast, you just came right over with us.
It's been an honor and a treat.
It
really is. And, last year was a rough year, and I kind of predicted bad weather and economic problems last January, in fact. But with 2017, on the positive side, is going to have a lot of new inventions and discoveries. There are going to be a lot of investigations, revelations. But I'm going to call it the year of the autocrat. It's going to be good ego versus bad ego. I think you're going to see a lot of leaders around the world, maybe even saber-rattling and energizing. And there's the populist movement, which is going to continue, I think. Donald Trump is having a lot of emotional issues that could be very upsetting to him, and there'll probably be a lot of tweets between March 2nd and April 23rd, and then he hits a wall. A lot of difficulties. Some of them may either have to do with his health and legal matters between April 23rd and June 14. If he gets by that, he's going to be doing a lot better. But I do see Mike Pence, who's in a much stronger year, taking on a lot of responsibilities.
Helping him out more and more.
I'm sorry?
Helping him out more and more, I guess.
Yeah, more and more. And he gets more involved. And the U.S. goes into a cycle, July 4, which happens every 45 years to the United States. Now, there are 45-year cycles in human beings, and they only happen once usually, unless people live to 90. And that's been called by psychologists the midlife crisis. You know, around age 44, 45, there's a real big change that can happen for people, and then between 49 and 55. Now, the U.S. is going into that, and so I looked back 45 years to 1972, 1927, all the way back to 1792, to see if there was a series of events that happened in those particular years. And a lot of it had to do with immigration, new treaties being signed, new pacts, new realignments, and I don't know, you know, Donald Trump is a three of diamonds. The last three of diamond president we had was Herbert Hoover.
Oh, boy. And look what happened with him.
Yeah. Well, we had a discussion. So what I see, the most difficult time for the U.S. Is between October 16th and December 6th. There's some danger. I don't know if it's Mother Nature or an attack, but between October 16th and December 6th is the most difficult time for the United States.
2016, Joseph, was a very difficult year for a lot of people. I sensed a lot of tension in people, concern with people. At least 2017, at least right now from the outset, feels that it might be a little calmer.
It's not going to be as heavy. You know, I've been dreading 2016 for years now. I've mentioned it for several
times.
years.
Yeah.
And I also mentioned that if we're going to have UFO contact, it would be in 2016. And there was a lot of space activity and new breakthroughs in space and even in understanding gravity. You know, so there were some wonderful things that happened there. But this was a very heavy year. I don't think this year is going to be so heavy, but I think everyone is going to feel like there's a lot more they need to be doing.
I think so too.
You know, it's like you were born with a pair of kings, and suddenly you've got another king to deal with, or aces up. You know, so and some of that may be confusing at times, but there will be extra efforts, new possibilities, new startups. One thing I'm worried about is you remember Network, the movie?
Oh, I love that movie. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, remember Ned Beatty saying there are no governments anymore. It's everything's being run by the big corporations.
Yeah, he was right.
And that's what we're going to be seeing.
You know, Joseph, as we look towards 2017, in terms of speed and time, 2016 seemed to me, personally, to be the fastest year I have ever experienced.
Yeah.
I don't know where it went.
I experienced it too. Time, you know, if you look at a watch, time moves normally. But in my readings, you know, on my webpage, I have the kind of tempo of the day. This is going to be a slow day. This is going to be a fast-moving day. There are days when everything moves quickly and easily. There are days when it goes on and on and on forever. There are going to be a lot of shifts and changes this year. Time is going to move a little faster.
Well, we got to slow it down somehow. I wish we could.
Be productive, be positive. Today is a powerful day for affirmations, so can tomorrow be? Write down, you know, I am attracting more love into my life. I'm attracting more money into my life. I am finding the ideal work in my life. Use those affirmations, I think.
I've got to tell you, every New Year's Eve that I've had the opportunity to be out, not working, you know, if it falls on a Saturday, for example, every time that has happened, I have heard people talking about the year we're leaving, whatever year that might be, 2012, 14, whenever it is. So glad that that year is gone. I have never heard anyone, Joseph, say, what a great year, I'm going to miss it. Why not? Why don't we hear that?
Well, and not last year.
I never hear anybody talk about any of the past years that they like.
Well, we're always looking. I think it's the indomitable human spirit looking for a new chance, a new opportunity, and this year is going to give that to a lot of people.
I hope so too. So, as you look towards 2017, what do you see for the economy? I mean, there are some experts who've come on the program. They think there's going to be a housing bubble burst. They think the stock market's going to drop dramatically. Yet right now, things seem pretty optimistic.
Yeah, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see any kind of major economic disturbance, I don't think, until 2018. But I'll talk more about that next year.
Yeah, exactly. And the wonders, of course, of this program, we record everything. You talked a little bit about ET presence, that there might be some ET contact, and you said if it doesn't happen at the end of 2016, it might be 9 years from then.
That's right.
So it didn't happen precisely, so it's going to be longer then.
Right, but there's been a lot of UFO stuff.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't
Nonetheless,
stop.
and a lot of, astrophysicists have done some amazing discoveries as well.
Does Hillary Clinton fade away in 2017?
Yeah, I don't see her very active for a while.
And you don't see her resurrecting in 4 more years, do you?
No, I don't.
That's not going to happen. Joseph, of course, his website is 1-800-see-self.com. It's 800-see-self.com. And his phone number is 1-800-see-self.com. But that is a number that is etched into my head, Joseph. You just can't forget it.
Well, when I get off the phone, I usually have about 150 calls.
Oh, my gosh. All right, what I want to do for the next half hour that we have you is take some phone calls from folks and maybe get their predictions for 2017 and your reaction to that, okay?
Sure, I'd love to do
All right, let's do that. So we're going to take calls each half hour with the special guests that we will have tonight. Joseph Jacobs with us for the next half hour. Let's take your calls and your predictions for 2017, things that you see might happen, and we'll get Joseph the Psychic's reaction to all of that right here on Coast to Coast AM. And don't forget, of course, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and anytime you want, send me an email at george@coasttocoastam.com. And this, of course, tonight is our 14th year anniversary party. 14 years since I started doing Coast to Coast on a full-time basis. I was doing it part-time a couple of years before that. And we have come across so many incredible people on this program who have been instrumental to the success of this show, who have been great guests, who have been great listeners, who become guests. And several years ago, producer Tom Danheiser told me, hey, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top listens to the show a lot. And I went, really? And he said, yeah, he loves it. And, well, let me bring him in. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. Hey, Billy.
Hey, man. BFG, right here on Coast to Coast. I'm one of those guys. I've been challenged, and here we are, right here, celebrating another round, eh?
Oh, and we keep going, just like you folks at ZZ Top. Keep going. What energy you guys have, Billy?
Oh yeah. Well, it's what we get by way of listening to you guys. Let's keep it going.
We shall be doing that. I want to thank you for the support you've given us on this program and for the great music you've given so many millions of people across this planet, Billy, you and the rest of the guys on ZZ Top. Thank you for everything, Billy.
Well, thank you, and Happy New Year, as they say. Let's give it another, let's shoot it to the atmosphere.
You got it. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, great guy. And, of course, Another person who's very instrumental to Coast and has been just a superb guest is none other than researcher Micah Hanks. Micah, welcome to the program, and thank you, and Happy New Year's to you, Micah.
Happy New Year, George. 14 years. I'll tell you, you've been working hard, haven't you?
Clicking along. I mean, I can't believe it has gone by that fast.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're time traveling, that's what happens.
Exactly. What's Micah been up to these days?
Oh, you know, well, doing what the last guy that we were on the line here with talking to has been doing, playing guitar. Boy, now I've been in the presence of greatness, George. But we did a little of that back in August here in Asheville, North Carolina as well. So in addition to guitar, keeping an eye to the skies, as I always do, and just looking ahead to 2017 with a lot of power and positivity, man.
The late Jimi Hendrix once said that Billy Gibbons was the best guitarist he's ever heard. Billy, of course, said that about Jimmy. And I will say that you are also one of the best. You played for me in Asheville, North Carolina at our event, and you are one heck of a musician, my friend.
You know, I'm always going to remember, George, the rehearsals. That was what was so fun, is being up there on the stage in a dimly lit auditorium, the band and you and I. It was just great. I mean, it was pure lightning in a bottle, and there's nothing quite like that when you get to have that kind of experience, not only with professionals, but with friends. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, putting a musical dimension to what we do together, George, was, I think, truly a highlight of 2016 for me.
Many more years to come, Micah, and thanks for everything.
Hey, yeah, you too. Happy New Year, and let's do 14 more years if you can, okay?
You got that. God willing, we shall do that. Okay, we're going to come back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM with your phone calls, your predictions, your questions for psychic Joseph Jacobs next on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, welcome back to our New Year program. I'm George Noory, and our guest this hour is psychic Joseph Jacobs. We will take calls with Joseph as well for the remaining portion of this half hour. And Joseph, of course, as you look towards now 2017, and it's not going to be as bumpy, you believe, than 2016, it still is a very volatile planet in terms of people and emotion, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, you have 60 million people who don't have homes, and a lot of that pressure, you know, to some extent, the terrorists have altered the Western world in terms of fear, in terms of prejudice, in terms of, you know, to some extent, those gangsters, because that's what they are. They're not terrorists. They're
thugs.
They're thugs. They
I mean, who would
steal
desecrate
women?
a church?
They steal women. They kill people. I mean, they're gangsters, and they don't have any political relevance.
No, they don't. So let's take calls. And when Joseph comes on the program during the year, of course, we'll do personal readings. He can talk about you. But what I want from you this time is your own predictions for 2017 and Joseph Jacobs' reaction to that. So let's go to Luke in Liberty, Texas to get things started. Hey, Luke, Happy New Year to you.
Thanks. Happy New Year to you too, George.
Thank you.
And, I have probably about 3 predictions. I'll try to make it quick.
Okay.
The first one is that I think the Antichrist is on this earth. I don't think he's American. I think he may be Israeli or Palestinian. And I think he may be anti-baptized or do his first anti-miracle this year.
Okay.
The second one is, am I allowed to predict, like, the death of a famous person?
Yeah, that probably a sure thing. And how about your last one?
I'm not sure if Donald Trump is going to be assassinated or if he's going to die of natural causes. I do not think he's going to be impeached, though.
Okay.
And the third one is, I think I'm going to be an author this year.
Oh, you might be even a guest on the show.
Yeah, then
all right.
I'm use a pen name, so you're going to have to pay attention to my voice and where I'm calling from in case you want to blackmail me.
We won't blackmail you at all. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Now, in terms of any danger to the president, I prefer we don't talk about that, folks. It's one subject that I've always considered taboo on the program. It's just something I don't do. So let's please
I,
make sure
I
you do that.
can't comment on
And I don't want you to comment on that at all. What do you think about the Antichrist? He believes the Antichrist is already here.
I don't believe in that.
You don't believe in the Antichrist, or believe he's here?
I don't believe he's here.
Okay, but you do believe in the Antichrist?
No, I don't.
Oh, at all?
I'm Jewish.
Well, that's true.
And I'm a Jew-boo. I'm a Jewish and Buddhist, you know. So.
Death of a famous person? That's probably a slam dunk.
That is.
I mean, look what's happened in the last couple of weeks, Joseph. Oh my God, Alan Thicke, Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, George Michael. My God.
Yeah.
Right toward the end of the year.
I think it's the stress on a lot of these people. It's been a very, very stressful, depressing year.
You know, we lost a lot of great people in 2016. I mean, a lot of great people. Are we losing more great people than we're replenishing on this planet?
Oh no. There's a great new generation. There's a very vibrant generation of 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, people who are very productive and they're going to make big changes in 2 years.
Let's hope they do. Linda Marie in Medford, Oregon is with us. What do you think about 2017, Linda?
Hi, George.
Hi.
Joseph.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
You too.
I predict I'm going to win a lot of money and fall in love this year. And Joseph, I'm a Queen of Hearts, November 21st, 1970. How close am I to my prediction?
Win a lot of money and find love, Joseph.
I think if that's what you want, you will accomplish it.
Those are great predictions. You can't go wrong with those.
No, you can't.
Good luck, Linda. Hope they all work out for you.
There's nothing like positive thinking. That's the only magic. I mean, I have a wand. You know, I sometimes create a wand. It can be a pen. It can be a ruler. Something that you put your energies to and put your affirmations into. You know, when you think positively, you turn things around, and there's more opportunity for positive thinking in the year to come.
You make your predictions, and we'll just tell people who are brand new to the show, based on a card system. Explain that.
That's right. Well, every day in the year is a card, like the lady who just called, who's the Queen of Hearts, and then I follow your story in a sense, and I see what the issues are in terms of finance, in terms of jobs, in terms of relationships. I'm very good with the relationships and career, and why am I here? You know, what a lot of people will go through that whole process of why am I here? What's it all about? And I come up with the lessons that you're here to learn. And the cards seem to define that just about better than any system I've ever run across in the many years that I've explored various systems, you know.
Let's go to Nancy in Victoria, Texas, east of the Rockies. Hey, Nancy, you're up with us.
Hey, George. Happy anniversary. Happy New Year.
Thank you. What do you think for 2017?
Well, there's been a lot of talks in the celebrity world that there is a 50-50 chance that Kim Kardashian and Kanye West might divorce sometime this year. What do you think?
That's a possibility.
Go ahead, Joseph. You're into the celebrities. You follow them, Joseph. So what do you think?
That's a strong possibility.
All right. And Nancy, what else you got for us? Still there? Nope, Nancy is gone. She is gone. But Terry is in California, first-time caller. Hi, Terry. Go ahead.
Hi, George. I don't have a prediction for myself because I've been stuck. My husband's coming up on the second year of his death.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I really don't know what to do with myself. I mean, I can't move forward. I feel like I'm just stuck.
Yeah, then accept it. You're going through a mourning period.
Yeah.
You know,
a normal mourning period.
Have you looked for help?
Yeah, but it just...
No, there are groups out there in various churches it doesn't have to cost money, but a bereavement group can be very positive, and it's a wonderful way to meet other people and share with other people and help not only yourself. When you help others, you help yourself.
This is true.
When you give charitably, you receive also.
Yeah.
And so, you've do you have any hobbies?
You know, I used to, but I can't get motivated to do anything.
What's your birthday month and just the month and day?
January 23rd.
January 23rd. Well, do some creative work. Do some writing. And you do from time to time, even before your tragedy, have a tendency to have a bit of inertia problem,
Yeah.
And so write down things you want to take care of them, maybe around the house.
Yeah.
Find some positive spiritual outlet. You have a great potential for that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get beyond it. You'll get by it.
All right, good luck, Terry, and let's make 2017 just a great year for you. Joseph, over the past several years, of course, I lost my father. Then several years later, I lost my sister to brain cancer, and there are holes in your body that literally get eaten away when something like that happens.
And this was an important family year for you.
Yeah, it is.
This was what this year was all about, and I think you're coming into a very hard work year. But you need to take care of a lot of financial stuff right now through the middle of February.
Okay.
And I would trust your intuition. Your intuition is going to kind of peak after February 20th. And allow for delays in travel. There may be some delays in travel between April 13 and June 3rd.
Gosh, I wish I could.
But then you're coming into a really hard work, reorganizing kind of a year, and
got a lot of projects.
A lot of stuff going on.
Lots of things. Let's go to David in Fairbanks, Alaska, on the wild card line. Hello, David. Go ahead.
Hello. Happy anniversary and Happy New Year.
Thanks, David. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to talk with you again. I have two predictions, and they're kind of connected.
Okay.
And they have to deal with the presidency of Donald Trump. I think that with his reign as president, that people are, as more and more truth gets put out about Donald Trump, a lot of things we do not know right now. And as we learn more, I think people are going to realize that this the government that has been, that people now are rebelling about, we're going to realize it really wasn't that bad. And with that, I think a new movement is going to arise, which is going to be a liberal version of the Tea Party. And I think people are going to appreciate President Obama and the way politics used to be with the reign of Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I have no doubt.
I agree with you, and I think there will be an emotional depression after a couple of years also.
So you think there's going to be like a whip-around effect, Joseph, this year?
Well, I think when I take a look at Trump's cards, I look at Pence's cards, I look at the United States, and I see a lot of difficulties coming up.
I remember when President Obama got elected, and he hit a couple bumps in the road months later. With Obamacare and things like that. Somebody had taken out a billboard with George Bush up there, and it said, "Miss me now." And, I mean, as much as everybody wanted that presidency toward the end to just go away because of Iraq and because of the way the economy had fallen apart and everything else, it was funny to see that. And people are different that way, too. They seem to sometimes forget, and then they start thinking about some of the better things. And the same thing could happen with President Obama.
You know, in Australia, it's a law that you have to vote. And when you get 46% of the population not voting, they have no say. They can't gripe. And you know, I had a history teacher once who said that a dictatorship is a lazy democracy.
What do you think of the Russian hacking situation?
Oh, well,
is that going to crop up?
I've been saying for years, WW1, World War One, WW2, World War II, WWW.
Well,
I've been warning about that.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, and I spend as little time as I can on the computer.
Let's go to Trevor in Tucson, Arizona. Hi, Trevor. What do you got for us?
Hey, Happy New Year. I think that the UN resolution just recently to divide Jerusalem is going to create a compounding effect, bringing about the rapture. And
wow.
2018, from November 1st to December 31st, I think the rapture is going to happen. There's a biblical generation that sees Israel become a state, 1948. Add 7 years to that, that's 2018. I think Obama is going to have a really big hand in creating peace and some kind of coalition between Palestinians and Israelis to create build a third temple, the third temple on the Temple Mount.
That would be dramatic. Oh, what do you think of that, Joseph?
I can't see that happening.
Okay.
You know, the mosque on the Temple Mount is a superimposition that it's amazing how the Israelis can accept that. But Muhammad was never in Jerusalem. You know, he had an out-of-body experience or a spiritual experience that he claimed to have visited Jerusalem. But the Muslims have Mecca and Medina and many, many other towns which are holy towns to them, and I don't think they need Jerusalem.
Joseph, my friend, thank you. Let's keep in touch. And the website, again, is 800cself.com, linked up at coasttocoastam.com, and your toll-free number, which you can call folks at any time, 1-800-C-SELF, just like see with your eyes, 1-800-cself.com. Joseph, be well. Talk to you in the new year, okay?
You too. Have a very happy new year and anniversary.
Thank you, sir.